publicly on the internet that Charlie Kirk was a fascist that got what he deserved.
Dean.
Say, I'm sorry, Dean, and then I'll answer your question.
Dean, I am so sorry. Can you
Now I want a ukulele in 5 tiers. Why is it treasonous to tell our military that if our president makes an unlawful order, they don't have to follow it? Be very specific.
Because they are not doing anything unconstitutional on the orders of the president's administration.
That's not true.
Why are you out here at AmFest today?
Oh, have civil discourse, talk to Trump supporters, see why they're still supporting, this mess.
What do you think about Turning Point USA?
I mean, I'd say that my thoughts on Turning Point USA aren't really why I'm out here. This is more so just a meeting space and a congregation for Trump supporters, and I'm here to talk about the state that our country is in, where it's been and where it's heading. I guess I don't really think about Turning Point USA too much. I think that, it's a machine that's been created to help, from my perspective, of course, indoctrinate the youth by reaching out to college and high school campuses across this country, starting clubs to get more people involved politically on the right. But, that aside, I'm here to debate Trump supporters.
What do you think about Charlie Kirk?
Well, I mean, I've made my thoughts on Charlie Kirk very clear for a while now. I think that he was very, very uneducated. I think that he was not too good at debating. Watch my sit down with him. That could be proven. And I think that he was scared to debate me. I mean, I recorded a video of him saying exactly that, stumbling upon his words when a student at an event at Texas A&M down in Texas asked him to debate me. He basically said no. But I also don't think that he deserved to die. I don't think that he deserved to be executed, and I think that political violence is bad. So,
what are some things you think are problems in the country right now?
Well, I think that one problem that we have in the country right now is an inability to genuinely critique the sitting president of the most powerful country that's existed in the history of planet Earth without backlash. Donald Trump said that it's seditious and treasonous to question his mental aptitude, to question his physical strength or his mental coherence. And what did he say about sedition 4 weeks ago? That it's punishable by death. He said it's now illegal to criticize him in the media, and he called for the execution of Democrats in Congress simply because they said that the military shouldn't abide by any unlawful order that he were to make. Can I ask you a question?
One more. If you think it's illegal for people to criticize President Trump, or he wants to make it illegal, do you feel unsafe being out here criticizing President Trump?
No, I don't. I don't feel unsafe being out here criticizing President Trump. And honestly, I'd still be doing the same thing if it was illegal in the law. I'd be out here exercising, my ability to change the minds of people. Plus, I think that Donald Trump has really encroached on the and corroded, the checks and balances in our government. He stress tested our democracy many times. But, with his rhetoric saying that it's illegal to criticize him, he's just kind of screaming into the abyss. I don't think he'd really get too far with, an attack on the First Amendment to that extent. Do you mind if I ask you a question?
So he's not really you don't feel encroached at all? You don't think it's going to go anywhere?
Specifically with criticizing him in the media, unless you're CNN, NBC, ABC, so on and so forth, you're a media organization that he hates, he's going to sue you, then he's going to lose. He's going to threaten a lawsuit or call the journalist the enemy of the people. He's going to turn around and argue, that you should be kicked off air, deny you access to the Pentagon, deny you access to the Oval Office like AP. And he's certainly trying to further this warpath of tyranny and attacks on our Constitution. I mean, just look at his attack on the 14th. But ultimately, as a private citizen, I mean, I think I'm going to be in the clear. And if he does try, for instance, hypothetically, to drop a lawsuit, I mean, I think that would be fun to take to court. And I could just hope that more of our judges, more of those empowering the judicial branch, continue to stand against the tyranny of Trump. But, he's making a lot of judicial nominations, not predicated on an observance for the rule of law, but just on loyalty to himself. Fun fact, there hasn't been a recent judicial nomination that he has made that has condemned J6 or argued and accepted that Biden won the 2020 election. I mean, when they can't even pass that basic democratic test, I mean, it really feel like it goes a long way to prove that what I'm saying is right. Now, I actually have a question for you. I'm sorry. No. You said one more 3 times. You said what? You said one more. You said one more 3 times. So here's my one. Do you support Trump?
I would say I do, but not in my capacity here. I'm really here to ask questions.
Okay, and I'm here to ask you a question. What's your favorite Trump policy?
I would say close the border.
That's not a policy. That's a phrase. How about your favorite Trump policy?
Okay. I think policy?
Yeah.
Well, I would say closing the border is a policy, right? It might not be that.
So what policy has he passed to close the border?
Well, he's passed executive orders, right?
Executive orders, like which ones?
Well, I think they do the job. I can't tell you the exact title of the executive order.
So then you can't tell me an exact policy.
Well, would you disagree that immigration, there's going to be different policies on immigration, whether it's, be looser on immigration or be tougher on immigration? Don't you think that would be kind of like a...
I'd say that those are directions or themes, but not specific policies. And when it comes specifically to closing the border, I don't think Donald Trump has done that with good policy. I think that he's done it with fascism and human rights abuse.
How has Trump closed the border with fascism?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess we're both holding mics
Yeah, I
here.
don't know how-
This is good. No, but anyways, I think that Donald Trump has reduced undocumented entry into this country by scaring it away, by violating the human and constitutional rights of the undocumented immigrants that are already here. Like, for instance, I could give you a couple good examples here. One example would be his illegal removal of Abrego Garcia to CICA in El Salvador, where he was beaten, tortured, and starved for 3 weeks, 2 weeks after the Supreme Court ruled that his removal was illegal, and the Trump administration had to facilitate his return home, which then led to the Trump White House going on Twitter saying that he's never coming back. We also see students being black bagged on campus, then taken to ICE detention centers 1,000 miles away, violating the withholding order that judges have made, or planes worth of Venezuelan immigrants being deported down to CICOT in an infringement of their Fifth Amendment right to due process. That's an abuse of our Constitution. That's an abuse of human rights, and I think maybe that's what's scaring you entry away. I'll give you one more question, but then I need to go get on. Last question, seriously.
What do you think about the Second Amendment?
I think that in a lot of scenarios, gun ownership can be a positive. I think that in a lot of scenarios, I mean, I'm a gun owner myself.
Yeah.
I have a 9mm handgun.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I also think that we have an epidemic of continued gun violence. So far this year, it's not even been 360 days. We've had over 400 mass shootings. And if introducing fair and common sense gun law and reform would reduce the amount of innocent children that are senselessly losing their lives across this country, I'm gonna obviously support it, and you should too. But last question, I appreciate
Thank
you for
you,
your
Pete.
time.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you have a good one.
Let's begin.
And that's how we're starting.
So you mentioned Charlie Kirk earlier, but you did say that he was a fascist and fascists get what they deserve, or you said something similar to that. Do you have any opinions on that?
Roll the clip. Let me see the clip of me saying that.
Well, I don't have the clip on me.
Why not?
I'm not going to pull out my phone right now.
I think the
well-
reason why you want to be able to roll the clip is because that's not what I said. That didn't happen.
Is that what you believe or not?
Dude, you just said that. That's something that I said to you early on camera.
No.
So,
I meant you
I just
said that.
I just
did not
want to be
say-
clear.
Let me clarify.
I just
You
let me
didn't say that to me.
let me. So then, who did I say it to?
What?
Who did I say it to?
You said it online. You
Online?
did not say it to me, but do you believe that?
Wait, pull out your phone. Roll the clip of me saying that online.
Well, what do you think about it?
No, I'm not going to answer any more questions.
You're not
You
gonna
can pull out
answer
your
the question?
phone and prove what you just said.
Well, can't you just say that you don't think that
Pull up-
Charlie Kirk was a fascist?
Pull out your phone and prove what you just said occurred.
Well, if I believe that,
Why aren't you willing to do that?
well, why aren't you willing to answer the question?
Because you're unwilling to pull out your phone and prove what I just said. I believe in linear dialogue, and linear dialogue is the most productive means of conversation. And inside a linear dialogue, we go point by point. So, of course, we're going to start with the point that you made, which is on the internet. I said that Charlie Kirk's is fascist and he deserves to die. How about this? It's
Well,
not
I'm
okay
not
for
lying.
either of us to lie.
Well, no, wait.
It's not okay for me to posit that you said on the internet that you're attracted to 15-year-old girls. It is not okay for you to say that you saw me on the internet say that Charlie Kirk was a fascist that got what he deserved. If we're going to accurately represent one another, that can't be a one-way street. It must be a two-way street where we're both engaging in an accurate representation of each other's character, which would first start on the basis of only making accusations of the other's character when good evidence would suggest that it is true. And you admitted that you didn't have any evidence for the allegation that you made against me in your
Well, you
claim,
answered the
arguing,
phone, I told
right,
you,
that I said he's a fascist that got what he deserved. Thereby, you do view it as a one-way street where I must correctly represent your character. Can't say you said on the internet that you're attracted to 15-year-old girls, but when it comes the other way, you gotta say whatever you want.
What do you think?
Thank you.
You're the steward. But
No more questions. If you could apologize for incorrectly accusing me of arguing
Dean?
publicly on the internet that Charlie Kirk was a fascist that got what he deserved.
Dean.
Say, I'm sorry, Dean, and then I'll answer your question.
Dean, I am so sorry. Can you condemn
Now I want a ukulele in 5 tiers.
Dean, can you condemn people who say Charlie Kirk was a fascist?
2 tiers minimum and a ukulele.
That's crazy.
Well,
I can't do that.
listen, if you're not going to give me the
That
2
would
tiers
be
minimum and the
ingenuous.
ukulele,
That would be ingenuous.
if you're not going to give me the 2 tiers minimum and the ukulele, how about this? Tell me what a fascist is.
What is a fascist? It's an authoritarian regime that wants to centralize control in one leader.
Okay, so in order for fascism to be true, there must only be one leader.
Well, I would say it's usually concentrated. The power
Usually.
is one leader, right?
Okay, so a concentration of power.
Well, is that an unfair definition?
Well, I mean, I think it's a workable one. So, given the fact that you define fascism to include a usual concentration of power from multiple people to one person, would you argue that maybe something that we see from the Trump administration of an attempt to consolidate power to the executive branch, take it out of the Congress or the Supreme Court via his belligerent and intentional attempt to just reinterpret the case law and precedent set forth by SCOTUS surrounding the 14th Amendment and how it grants birthright citizenship to the children born to undocumented immigrants on American soil through Executive Order number 14160 that he passed, attempting to basically say that they don't have birthright citizenship, trying to basically say that the Constitution's been wrong all along and I solely have the power to amend it, even though per the Constitution that's a power delegated to the near 500 people in the House of Representatives and Senate, or the power delegated to SCOTUS to
You're
reinterpret
saying
it,
a lot of
that
stuff,
would be a representation of a quote-unquote fascistic tendency.
You said a whole lot of stuff right there.
Okay, I'll condense it down.
Do I think Trump is a fascist? No.
No. The question that I'm asking you is, given the fact that your definition of fascism was to condense power from a large body of people to a singular person, that it would be fair to represent Donald Trump's attempt to do exactly that as a fascistic tendency.
Well, you would say it's more right-leaning, but that's like calling, I don't know, every Democrat a communist, and I wouldn't do that.
Define communism.
It is, what is communism?
Yeah.
It's when the government has control.
You're gonna have to delete this part, by the way.
When the government has control over industry.
You're already wrong.
Okay.
Because you want to know why you're wrong?
Well, I don't have the exact definition.
Because under communism, there's no government. Communism, understood easily, is a stateless, classless, moneyless society. So, of course, it wouldn't be fair for you to label all Democrats as a communist when you don't even know what communism is.
Well, I wouldn't label all Democrats communists.
Well,
but
because you don't even know what a communist is, right?
Would you consider yourself a communist?
No, I don't consider myself a communist, thank you. So, can we agree that one of the many reasons why it would be unfair for you to label all Democrats as communists is because you don't even know what a communist is?
I would disagree with that.
But I asked you what a communist is, and the first thing that you said was some implication of the existence of a government and them controlling the means of production. But I thought that we just clarified under communism, there is no government because there's no state.
Well, yeah, you were right. I didn't have the definition on hand, but I still know what communism looks like.
But those two things are contradictory. You can't argue that communism is stateless, and under communism, the state controls the means of production. Can you agree that that is a strict contradiction?
Dean,
Don't pivot.
I'm here, I'm a journalist. I'm not going to debate you. It was a good talk, though. Okay, I gotta go.
Yeah. I'm happy that I'm the one that scared you off. Great. Thanks for the conversation.
You didn't scare me off. We can keep talking. You want to keep talking?
Yeah. So then
Try to
answer.
play with my ego now.
Well, I mean, all that I'm saying is I think it's very fair for me to ask you here, right? Can you agree that it is explicitly contradictory to suggest that under communism, the state controls the means of production, and simultaneously under communism, there's no state at all?
Well, I would say the philosophy of communism, yeah, there's no state, but when communism is implemented, the state ends up taking all the control over production, and a lot of people die.
Are you arguing like the CCP in China?
Yeah, or the Soviet Union,
It's
right?
a really bad argument about the CCP in China. Even they say they're not communists yet.
Okay, well, did the Soviet Union say they were communists?
I'm actually not too educated on the literature surrounding the Soviet Union.
So
I know
you
that
don't know-
communists are.
So you don't know if the Soviet Union was communist or not?
Yeah, precisely. I don't know if the Soviet Union was communist or not.
So you can't answer my questions?
I'm answering your question by telling you that I don't know.
What form of government did the Soviet Union have?
I'm not too educated on the Soviet Union nor their form of government.
Okay. That's
Okay.
unfortunate, but they tried to
Yeah.
implement communism. It didn't work out, and it ended up in a system where the government had all the control over the means of production.
Well, I mean, I just find it silly that you're arguing that they try to implement something that you can't define.
I mean, you could say that, right? But like, you know, the
That's fair,
philosophy
right?
of communism.
Well, I'm not sure that you do.
I mean, you don't know what form of government the Soviet Union tried to implement, so maybe read some history books.
Well, I certainly know that the Soviet Union wasn't communist because it was a state. And under communism, there is no state. Now, I think I think that a likely fair interpretation, based upon the little I do know about the Soviet Union, would be that maybe the Soviet Union was inevitably trying to achieve communism, but they failed in their attempt to achieve said form of governance. But I think the question that I asked you that you never gave, I know enough to argue that. But
So you know enough
anything
to
beyond
argue that,
their
but not
specific
the-
governmental structure, like I don't know what their specific governmental structure is. I don't know like too much about like how their governmental structure interplayed with their people. I do know a lot about maybe like the atrocities that took place in the Soviet Union. Like for instance, Stalin fired a bunch of scientists from the state that had good accreditation, and then replaced them with loyalists that then led to a famine and mass killing of like millions of people, I know that's really bad. But about
In the
like
name of communism.
if he did that in the name of communism, then maybe that it does explain why so many individuals have such a bad view of communism. But ultimately, I do think that there are conceptions of communism, right, which aren't like absolutely genocidal. And although I'm not personally a communist, right, I disagree with communism. I disagree with socialism. I have like smaller, more complex disagreements. I consider myself to be a social democrat, right? I obviously don't think that saying that because Stalin killed this many people in the name of communism, that therefore communism is inherently genocidal. We just say that therefore Stalin is a fucking dumbass.
Okay. Well, what disagreements do you have with communism?
Yeah, for sure. I think under many scenarios, it's actually fair to argue for the ownership of private property. I think that there's models for the ownership of private property.
By
so
who?
By the people. Like I think in many scenarios, it's fair to argue that that individuals should be able to like privately own the means of production. And I know that that's something that communism would reject in all scenarios. So there's like a disagreement, right? But I think the conversation obviously gets significantly more complex than that. But I'm going to go try to find another Trump supporter to debate unless there's anything else that you wanted to ask or go over. But I will ask you, if you do want to ask or go over anything else, just ensure that I first get a genuine apology for you falsely positing that I called Charlie Kirk a fascist and argued that he got what he deserved.
Man. It's okay.
Well, I think it's not so much a demonstration of offense, but more so an ask for accountability from a group of people that have been arguing that the left must be held accountable for creating a culture in which causes political violence. But then you turn around and you get to say whatever you want, arguing that random people who never argued that Charlie Kirk got what he deserved did say that Charlie Kirk got what he deserved, knowing that in all reality that is a statement and which is not only inflammatory but could direct the further potentiality of more violence directed towards myself from your peers. So it's not me like demonstrating anger, but more so just demonstrated and ask for accountability. I think it's important for us to hold ourselves accountable. Do you?
Okay, fair enough. What would you say to people who follow you, who like you, who are fans
This is
of
a
you,
question, not an apology.
Well, I already gave you your apology.
Oh, okay.
What would you say? What would you say to fans of yours who do think Charlie Kirk got what they deserve?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we should all think that political violence is wrong.
Cool. Awesome. I agree with you. Thank you, Dean.
Yeah, have a good one.
Good luck. God bless.
Yeah. Nathan Rimillard.
Don't act like you don't know me, because I know you know me. You said earlier you did.
Who are you?
I'm Yankee News on social
I'm just kidding. I know. We've talked a couple times before. I got a question for you.
Go for it.
So, what are your thoughts on American patriotism? What does it mean to be a patriot?
Proud to be an American, proud to be one of the greatest nations on earth, proud of our freedom that we have. Other nations don't have freedoms like we do. There's other countries, even third world countries, that I think I would prefer to be born here than there. Many countries, like I said, don't have the freedoms we have. So to be patriotic and yeah.
What are the freedoms that matter the most to you?
Me personally, freedom of speech, because I'm a journalist. But again, freedom of speech is being infringed upon in the sense that us conservatives are being attacked by people on the left. We're being murdered in the streets. We're being murdered. We're being attacked for our free speech. Under the previous administration, or Biden's administration, we were silenced for certain speech. So Biden was limiting speech. He told his DOJ to they were in cahoots with former X Twitter, telling them to silence posts about the Hunter Biden laptop story. For example, Charlie Kirk was killed by a leftist. So cases like that where the right is being harmed by leftist violence.
I just want to make sure that you're going to keep a consistent narrative here, because you are right. I do think that Biden's DOJ had reached out to the folks over at X, and I think that was proven by the Twitter files. But I want to make sure that you're willing to maintain your own consistency, because Donald Trump has reached out to Paramount, telling them that if they want to get an into the Warner Brothers Netflix deal, right, then they have to promise that they'll turn CNN into some further right-leaning source. He also said, right, that perhaps it's maybe illegal to criticize him in the media, and that his FCC, chairman by Brendan Carr, should start revoking the media licenses of companies that report negatively on him. He quote-unquote said that it's illegal to take a good story and to make it bad. And I mean, this just sounds like very similar rhetoric that you're describing that we heard from the Biden-Harris administration from your own perspective. And I then think that Donald Trump really takes the cake, right, by calling for the execution of Democrats based on what they say. One thing Biden didn't do, one thing Obama didn't do, one thing that, quite frankly, I can't really think of any Democrat that has ever done, serving inside of a position of power like the presidency or Congress, is to directly and intentionally call for the death of one of your political opponents because of something that they've said. Can you give me an example of that?
So what you're saying is different than action. Rhetoric and action are two different things. So you're saying rhetoric spoken by the Trump administration saying Trump says he doesn't like certain medias, that they should be fired. That's completely different than actually silencing creators or Americans.
I asked a question. Can you answer it?
What's your question?
The question that I asked you was one thing that Trump's done that no Democrat in power has ever done is to directly call for the execution of his political opponents because of what they had to say. I mean, 4 weeks ago, he went on Truth Social, you probably know this, and said that Democrats are seditious and traitors for telling the military to remember their oath, that they can disobey an unlawful order if one is made, and then, reposted somebody who said hang them, and then he said what they did was punishable by death. Can you name any Democrat in a serving position of power, like Congress or the presidency, that has directly and intentionally called for the death of their political opponents the same way Donald Trump did 4 weeks ago?
Okay, well, you're misconstruing what he said. He's not calling for the execution. He's saying that if they are breaking those laws, which is treason, that is what happens when you're treasonous. That's what he's only saying. He's not saying kill them. That's a complete difference. Again, you're misconstruing rhetoric and action.
It's construing.
You're misconstruing rhetoric and action. There's a difference.
I don't. Well, I think that your interpretation of what he said is wrong and incredibly unfair.
Wrong.
The reason why I think
Rhetoric
that
is different.
The reason why I think that your interpretation is unfair, he didn't just say, well, if it's sedition, if it's traitorous, that's punishable by death. No, he said it is seditious. Okay, then reposted somebody that said hang them. I mean, how can we be looking at the same messages, remembering the same thing, and have such a totally and wildly different conception of what happened? 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay? He said they are traitors, this is seditious, that's punishable by death, then reposted something that said, and I quote, hang them George Washington would.
Okay, repost is different from him saying something. And once again, if they are telling the U.S.
Is it though? I don't know.
It absolutely is.
How so?
Can I continue my point? Because I let you finish. Let's continue the thing of you finish. That's how it goes. So that's how debate goes.
My bad.
Yeah, you're good. So the point I'm trying to make is it's completely different for you to sit here and him for repost something, his rhetoric to say something, and that's not inciting any violence. I'm talking about political violence on the left and the right, and you're trying to compare the two. Action and rhetoric is different. They were calling. Hassan Piker calls, blood in the streets on all capitalists. Charlie Kirk was murdered by a leftist. People on the left were advocating for his murder. People were advocating for more murders of Republicans like him, calling us fascists and Nazis. I don't see them.
Are you describing rhetoric?
I don't see them condemning it, though.
No, because the thing is...
Everyone's condemning Donald Trump when he comes out and says something.
See, here's the thing, though, because you just got done telling me that there's a difference between action and rhetoric, and the reason why you don't care too much about what Donald Trump has said, directed towards American media outlets, directed towards, the Democrats serving in Congress, and you're describing that you don't really care too much because it's not action, it's rhetoric. But then you turn around and then you start criticizing Democrats and people on the left like Hassan Piker, not for what they've done, but for what they've said. I think that's very hypocritical. And what that tells me is that you really only care about dangerous rhetoric when you think it's coming from people on the left. But then as soon as it's coming from the most powerful man alive, the President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, you could care less and you write it off. You actually justified it by arguing that he was just truly describing what the punishment for this crime is. It is true, and you can argue that it isn't, or you wouldn't justify it.
No, I'm saying some of the rhetoric that Trump spews has been condemned. In recent light, Rob Reiner, everyone on the right is condemning what he said about Rob Reiner. For one. For two, I'm saying this rhetoric is insightful, which has incited people like Charlie Kirk being assassinated. That is an action. Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a leftist. Lunatic. That's an action.
Okay, so you're right. So right, it was an action. When
that was a leftist lunatic who killed Charlie Kirk.
Well, I'm not familiar with his political ideology.
Really?
But what I will say is that sure, it's probably more likely that they were on the left than the right. I think that's only fair to say. But once again, I'm really not too sure. I haven't really done too much research into Tyler Robinson. Well, I think that being a furry doesn't automatically make you on the left. There's plenty Nazi furries out there. In fact, there was just recently a Republican running for office in Indiana that got exposed as to being into gay Nazi furry porn. So there's just, something for consideration there. Now, but you did say that rhetoric matters when it is insightful. Be honest. When Donald Trump called for the execution of those Democrats, do you think that rhetoric could have incited violence against them?
Absolutely not, because again, I don't think he's calling for the execution. I think he's stating if they are being treasonous, if his lawmakers find out that they're being treasonous in that manner, that is what happens when you commit treason. I don't say he's not calling for it.
He said, "This is what they did is punishable by death." Then reposted a message that said, "Hang them." It is. What's going on, man? So if saying that what they did is punishable by death, and then retweeted saying "hang them" isn't rhetoric that could incite violence, then what is rhetoric that could incite violence?
Sure. So again, rhetoric that incites violence is like calling people on the right Nazis and fascists, because the only way to take out Nazis and fascists are to kill them, because they are in so much power that you can't do anything to stop them from taking away your rights or my rights other than fighting back.
So you think that it's more insightful to call somebody a fascist than it would be to say we need to hang them?
Absolutely, because it's more insightful. Yeah, it's more insightful in the manner that we're Republicans. We're not actually fascists. And they are actually committing treason by telling U.S. forces to disobey the administration and the government. That's what they're...
It's treasonous. What did they swear an oath to? Defend the Constitution from enemies, foreign and abroad. And quite frankly, inside of the oath that they took to uphold the Constitution, it's made clear that you were supposed to follow the law and act in accordance with that Constitution. And if an order that you're granted by a superior is not in accordance with the law, then disregard the order and follow the law. And now you're suggesting that it's treasonous, right, to tell our military to uphold the Constitution and to disobey any unlawful order if one is made. Thereby, you think the oath that they took to uphold the Constitution is treasonous and has been since it was conceived of, since it says the same thing. Why is it treasonous to tell our military that if our president makes an unlawful order, they don't have to follow it? Be very specific.
Because they are not doing anything unconstitutional on the orders of the president's administration.
That's not true.
Like what? Say something.
Executive Order number 14160 was unconstitutional.
And how is that unconstitutional?
Because it tried to take birthright citizenship away from the children born to undocumented immigrants on American soil when they've had that right guaranteed to them since the ratification of the 14th in 1868.
We're not talking about immigration. We're talking about the military. What is the president or his administration directed them to do that was unconstitutional?
You just said that the administration hasn't done anything unconstitutional. I give you an example, then you narrow the scope.
U.S. military. I said, what is the president or the U.S. The administration directed the U.S. military to do that was unconstitutional?
For sure. If you could concede the scope, it was just changed because you said the administration hasn't done anything unconstitutional,
Playback.
right?
Playback.
And then you go on to say you said that the administration hasn't done anything unconstitutional. Then I give you an example, then you narrow the scope. I think that's very interesting. But in specific, response to your question, I do remember this was maybe like 3 or 4 months ago. I think that there was a suggestion by Trump to the National Guard to function as a domestic law enforcement agency to make arrests. Unless there's a declared insurrection, that's in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act of the 19th century. And the if is important because has there been a declared insurrection?
Absolutely not.
Right?
Okay, but you're saying if, but they're not making arrests, are they?
Okay. Well, I mean, actually, we have seen a couple isolated instances of members of our military putting people in cuffs, plus the directive on the own is what is unconstitutional, and that's specifically what you asked me for.